It's a land of breathtaking beauty. It's a land of great contrast. To many, it's the land of milk and honey. But to those who live in Israel, and to Jews everywhere, Israel is simply the land called home. As Israel enters its second half century as a nation, there is prosperity. And there is a problem. There's still no lasting peace here. As the peace agreement with the Palestinians inched forward last month, a large group from the Greater Miami Jewish Federation arrived to get an up-close look at what life on the edge is really like here and to find out if they could help the homeland. South Floridians already donate millions to Israel. They're here during the time of the peace process, trying to be negotiated, a peace process that may be in trouble.
I think it's especially important that this group is being here bonding with the people of Israel during what can be what is a very difficult time for them.
There were renewed clashes between Israeli soldiers and Palestinians just 3 days after the negotiated pullback of Israeli soldiers from the West Bank. In an Israel without peace, danger is a mosaic, a kaleidoscope of daily images. Young soldiers load up their rifle magazines just in case while stopping at a suburban shopping center for lunch. Off-duty soldiers at a wine tasting. They are never unarmed. A bomb threat at the Western Wall, Judaism's most holy place. Terrorist bombers hit Jerusalem's fruit and vegetable market 2 days before we arrived. The Zion Gate in Jerusalem, still pockmarked with bullet holes from the war in 1967. Active minefields in the Upper Galilee, left over from past wars. I'm at what the Israelis call the good fence in northern Israel. It's the dividing line between Israel and southern Lebanon. Now, years ago, Israelis went in there and created what they call a buffer zone because terrorists still work those hills over there. A week after I was there, terrorists killed 7 soldiers along the fence line. 22 Israeli soldiers have died this year in the buffer zone in southern Lebanon. That's why Israeli soldiers closely check anyone who comes near on either side of the border, and why they come to work every day looking like they're going to war. Isn't the peace process supposed to end all of this?
ובתרדמת אילן באבן, שבויה בחלומה, העיר אשר בדד יושבת, ובליבה חומה, ירושלים.
Jerusalem, the most important piece of unfinished business in the peace process. One of the world's most ancient and holiest cities for 3 major religions. Jerusalem is also hip, the music of pop groups like Ethnic packing in young Israelis. But even on crowded and modern Ben Yehuda Street, the city's 3,000-year-old tradition of being at the center of one battle after the other continues. Last year on this street, a Palestinian suicide bomber blew himself and a dozen Israelis apart. Now, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, but the Palestinians want a part of it too. Who ultimately controls what will be the most crucial part of the peace process. It will make the Israeli troop pullout from the West Bank seem like a high school football game. Jerusalem is the Super Bowl. Both sides know it. Both sides want it as their capital. Not even an optimistic liberal like former Prime Minister Shimon Peres thinks compromise will work.
We're not going to divide Jerusalem. Jerusalem will remain united as the capital of Israel.
Israel stirs the cauldron of Palestinian dissent and anger by continuing to build in Jerusalem to increase the Israeli population in the city. The government has announced plans to build more than 6,500 homes in southern Jerusalem near the Arab town of Bethlehem. Palestinians are outraged. And in Arab East Jerusalem, land owned by Bell Harbor millionaire Dr. Irving Moskovitz continues to be cleared. The scene of riots last year, he wants to build a Jewish religious study center in the midst of a Palestinian neighborhood. The government hasn't given final approval. Moskowitz is sure the Prime Minister wants him to build.
He wants us to be here. And we will give him strength because we are here.
Palestinians haven't shown much evidence of compromise. Attacks against Israelis continue. And Yasser Arafat has been seen on Palestinian television glorifying the terrorists.
النسير على طريقه فنحن جميعا مشاريع شهادة مشاريع شهادة مشاريع شهادة.
He calls the struggle for Jerusalem a battle of life and death. Palestinian television keeps the pot boiling.
I have raised my children on Jihad, holy war, and on the principle that they never give up on their land. I taught them that they must return.
The Children's Hour is in prime time, produced by the Palestinian Education Ministry.
جئت في عز التعب رشاشة عنف وغضب وغضب وغضب. إذا احتجت على باب القدس أصبحت فدائيا أصبحت فدائيا بزي مقاتلي بزي مقاتلي بزي مقاتلي وشكرا. برافو برافو. ومن رام موت الفداء فدا فكيف اصطباري لكيد اليهود.
They're still educated to hate Jews. They're still anti-Semitic. They still believe and want very much to destroy the state of Israel.
I don't know what the Israelis are teaching their kids. Maybe they're not teaching them directly to hate the Arabs, but they're not teaching them anything about our right in this land, okay?
Roye Rizik is a Palestinian who lives with Jews. He's the mayor of Neve Shalom, located on a hill near the Jerusalem-Tel Aviv highway. Founded in 1979, Neve Shalom has about 30 Arab and Israeli families who work and play together. They also sponsor the School for Peace. There's a waiting list to move in. Rizik, educated at the University of Texas, is the village mayor. Shai Schwartz, an Israeli entertainer, helps to educate people about Neve Shalom.
I remember when I first came, hitting a lot of criticism. There has to be a lot of education done. There has to be a lot of meeting done on, as I say, grassroots level. And there is a beginning of this.
I myself, I don't see of this village as an example of a solution. I don't think that all Jews and all Palestinians should live together in mixed communities to prove that peace is possible. What I believe in is that we should come to this point of stop arguing about the past and who started and who is guilty and who is to blame, because each one of us could convince very good, including me, anybody of my right in this land, and me being the victim, and them being the aggressors, and so the Jewish could do the same thing from this side, and we are stuck into this argument that never ends and doesn't bring us to any place.
Jerusalem is just up the hill from Neve Shalom. Schwartz thinks the Neve Shalom example might work in that city filled with constant turmoil.
How can you ever go into a mine field like Jerusalem and demine all those myths and monsters that are behind every single wall, every chapel, every synagogue, every mosque in Jerusalem, and try and make that into a neutral ground?
Shimon Peres thinks he has the answer, and it involves the millions of dollars American Jews send to Israel.
Maybe instead of investing the money in infrastructure or food, we have to invest it in universities, in research centers, in joint ventures with the Palestinians.
Are you saying you would take contributions from American Jewry and do joint ventures with the Palestinians?
Yes, together. The Americans, the Palestinians, us. We have to, you see, even if we should be separated as we should, as states, we have to cooperate together.
Jewish society is definitely opened up to the idea of coexistence.
I mean, believe in coexistence shouldn't come out of me because I love the Jews, okay? I'm stuck with them in this miserable situation here, okay? And I want to find a way out of it.
Jeeploads of South Floridians move into an old battle zone in the Upper Galilee to see what price Israelis have paid for peace. During the Six-Day War in 1967, while Israeli forces were capturing Jerusalem and the Western Wall, settlements in this northern valley were bombarded by Syrian tanks and artillery in the Golan Heights. The Israelis won. Bunkers remained from the Yom Kippur War in 1973, when Israel once again was victorious in the Golan Heights.
And then they started to dig themselves up here very deeply, very massively.
Now the South Floridians learn some of the Golan may have to be returned. Bob Behar of Miami.
Once you're up here, you can't see why they can't get back to Golan Heights. If you sit up here and you see the valleys and you see the kibbutz and you see the homes of the Israeli children below, you realize why the conflict that's going on in the Middle East is so important and why there has to be peace.
Beyond that fence is a minefield up here in the Golan Heights near Syria. People up here are always thinking about peace because there's so many reminders of war. Not only the minefield, there's an old Syrian bunker left over from 1967. You can even find bomb fragments still laying on the ground.
Nitza Shapiro lives just 50 yards away. That doesn't bother her. Giving back some of the Golan Heights under the new peace plan does.
She's for peace, but not this peace. This situation is very bad. This situation is a war inside a war. The price is too expensive.
Peace is the real objective.
Retired Major General Yoram Yair helped to win the Golan Heights in 1973. We stood at a spot overlooking the Sea of Galilee where Syrian artillery and tanks once fired into Israeli territory. Should any of this land be returned?
It's not a military question, it's a political question. And politically, it's right to pay whatever it's needed to reach peace. I know one thing. Whatever we will pay for this peace is nothing, simply nothing compared to what you pay in wartime.
The possible return of land to the Syrians is far away in the peace process. For now, the peace controversy centers on returning land to the Palestinians, further south in the West Bank. I first came to Israel in 1973 as the Yom Kippur War was ending. Israel had strengthened its hold on the West Bank and Gaza where the Palestinians live. A lasting peace seemed a distant dream. Not to Information Minister Shimon Peres.
I would say while we didn't reach the shores of peace, we are, in spite of everything else, in a more promising period in the confrontation between the two movements of rebirth, the Arab and the Jewish one.
You know, it was 25 years ago when I first interviewed you, and at that time you were very encouraged about peace. Do you feel the same way now?
Yes, I mean, we made in the meantime peace with Egypt, peace with the Jordanians. We're in the middle of making peace with the Palestinians. I wish it would be faster and quicker, but it's on the move.
Peres is now a former prime minister and co-winner of the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to achieve peace with the Palestinians.
Do you think that the Palestinians really have an idea of what they want to accomplish as far as peace is concerned?
Yes. They have their dreams, we have our dreams. The dreams are in contradiction, and the act or the need of the politicians is to bridge between two different dreams, but not to do it with arms, but to do it with wisdom.
Pat and Marty Fine of Miami have Israeli and Arab friends who think they have the wisdom to want peace.
I think they're both right. I think patience and pursuance of peace is absolutely essential.
Arabs and Jews have been doing business here in the ancient passageways of Jerusalem for thousands of years. The Fines think modern politics are dividing them.
Long before there was even an Israel, people in this old quarter were at peace with each other. They got along as neighbors, they got along as merchants, and we've come a long way away from that politically.
These kids are Kafkazis, Jews from the Caucasus Mountains in the former Soviet Union, part of the huge immigration that is helping to change Israel economically, and that could improve chances for peace eventually. They live in Or Akiva.
A good example of economic development in Israel is Or Akiva. When I first came here in 1989, it was a backwater. Take a look at it now.
Street after street of new homes and apartments. a modern shopping center, an industrial park filled with cosmetics firms, improved schools. So many Russian immigrants, 8,500 in a town of 25,000, signs are in Hebrew and Russian. They're doing well.
Kavkazский. Русский. Белорусский, Кавказский.
Yevgeny says his gold teeth, a tradition in his Russian village, are a sure sign he's got it made.
Did you find out the answer to that problem?
Things like better schools attracts new investment and new people. Miami Jews have contributed more than $6 million to make this happen in Orokiva.
And hope you see the good result to your investment. Thank you from all the pupils of Rabbi Akiva schools.
Carolyn Miller of Miami Beach.
And it was just amazing how this has grown. Every time I come back, I can't believe I'm in Orokiva.
Rachel Gabai feels the same way. For 47 years, Yakov, who recently died, and Rachel ran a small shop in Orokiva. I met them in 1989 when times were hard. The town's new development has changed all that.
Things are beyond my expectations.
Once, the agricultural kibbutz was the symbol for Israel's economic growth. No more.
Before the kibbutz, or 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was living only by agriculture, fish, apples, oranges, and so. Today, they cannot afford it anymore. They must have some advanced technology.
Michel Beton is president of Galilee Optics, which rakes in up to $4 million a year for his kibbutz selling sunglasses worldwide. This kibbutz makes millions with its franchises: Ace Hardware, Office Depot, McDonald's, and Toys R Us. Another cleans up with mud, beauty products from the Dead Sea. Golan Winery is earning millions for the 4 kibbutz that own it. It's totally automated and built on land that once was used by the Syrians to bombard Israel with mortar shells. Winemaster Victor Schoenfeld is from Napa Valley, California.
It's quite important. This is one of the most successful businesses in the Golan Heights.
The private sector is booming. Tel Aviv has tapped into a digital gold mine. With 1,000 high-tech firms, Newsweek just named it one of the world's top 10 cities of the information age. The Florida-Israel Chamber of Commerce says 30 of those companies have South Florida offices. The boom, however, is not trickling down to the Palestinians.
It is time to roll.
Sandy Cutler is a tourist guide. Formerly of North Miami Beach, the Norland High and FIU graduate believes a better life for the Palestinians is the key to peace.
If the Palestinians have if their standard of living and if their lives become enhanced and are better, they have something to lose and something to protect. And then it's in their best interest to observe the peace. As long as they have nothing to lose, they have nothing to lose.
In a land where fighting has been going on for 3,000 years, peace in Israel is still uncertain. And there are many unanswered questions about the peace process. Who will control Jerusalem? What about the Golan Heights? How to divide the limited water supply? Should 5 million Palestinians in exile be permitted to return? Should a Palestinian state have an army? There are no easy answers.
We are a mosaic, and we need to be respectful of each other's differences. And out of that respect, there's a possibility for peace.
Most Israelis will not be ready to comply with the Palestinian demands, and then we will be faced with the terror threats, with the danger of war. I believe that we have to have a process of maybe 30, maybe 50 years.
30 to 50 years?
Yes. Why did he say so? If we shall not approve, we shall clearly have war. Not in 30 years, but in 2 years.
This is my land and this is where I'm going to stay, no matter what will happen here.
American Jews have a big stake in Israel financially and emotionally. To them, the country's future is important because of the past. Norman Brayman of the Greater Miami Jewish Federation explains why.
It's a home that's just built into our soul.
I think Israel being born out of the ashes of the Holocaust is the real answer to that question, Ike. And I think this is what really links Israel to the Jewish people. We all realize that had there been an Israel in the 30s, in the 40s, 6 million Jews wouldn't have died. Israel just represents the beacon of hope, of faith for Jews.
And what of the children with hope in their eyes? Would they be masters or slaves? And what of the future, the truths and the lies? Would there be children to say?
At the top of Masada, more than 1,900 years ago, a small group of Jews called the Zealots committed suicide rather than surrender to the Romans. And to this day, Masada remains a symbol of freedom. Born out of the worst tragedy of the 20th century, Israel is forever linked to its past. And now, in this land called home, Israel and Jews everywhere, to go forward into the future, must never forget what or who they left behind.
La